Hello lads and welcome to yet another video. Now today I'm going to be discussing a little thought I have because, when don't I sort of realise that's the sort of basis of this channel. You can just sort of assume that by now. But I was thinking, Series 11, that's still coming at some point, I hope. And I don't know, I can't really justify it, so I'm just going to say it. There's no context, just a thought I had. Should classic villains return? Because we've had a sort of villain from the classic series make a new appearance or a rebrand, or sort of ever since Series 1. I mean, Series 1 had the Daleks, Series 2 had the Cybermen, Series 3 had the Master, Series 4 had the Sontarans, Series 5 had the Silurians. Then the sort of dust travels off, but we still get the Great Intelligence and the Ice Warriors and stuff like that. Basically, the Doctor Who isn't a stranger to just recasting villains from the old series and then incorporating them into a new series setting, which is fantastic, brilliant. But I'm thinking, given the situation with Series 11 and the obvious casting choice, should this affect the fact that older villains should be brought in? And I'm going to go out there, I'm going to provide an argument, obviously, but I'm going to go out there and say, just leave it for a bit. Obviously, Jodie Whittaker as a Doctor is a fantastic choice. I think we all know that. I think that by now. But it's an opportunity to bring new fans in, and if there's going to be a plethora of new fans coming in, people who've lost interest and suddenly regain interest in the show, people who've just left it because of, Stephen Moffat, Peter Capaldi, or whatever reason they have, just coming in to have a new taste of it. And obviously I'm thinking they're going to make their judgments on the first episode. It's very unlikely that a classic series villain's going to make a rebrand return in that, but I'm just thinking, if we want to keep them on for the whole series, and you don't just want them you don't want to just keep them on from episode to episode, you want to keep them on from series to series, you want to keep giving them a reason to come back, so you don't want to lose their interest. And if you bring in, this is my theory, if you bring in a older series villain, then that might alienate them if it's treated in a certain way. I was just thinking, I was watching a few clips from The Empress of Mars from Series 10, and it is one of my favourite episodes from Series 10. It's very underrated. It's a little diamond in that plethora of diamonds in that series. I mean, sure, the Ice Warriors are a nice little return, and it's lovely to see them again in a proper story where they show off their villainness and also gives them some depth and whatever, they're there. But if you didn't know that the Ice Warriors were a thing in the classic series, would the enticement still be there? Because I'm just thinking about, I'm trying to isolate the fact that they're Ice Warriors and that Patrick Troughton faced them and all that. I'm just thinking, well, if you just remove all that, if you remove the nostalgia or the fan service away from their return, then they are just big green space monsters with nothing really unique about them. Sure, they've got the brilliant effects with the gun where they crumple up the soldiers, and that's a lovely, again, callback to the classic series. But if you don't have the information from the classic series for that callback to make sense, and it is just these new monsters with these new abilities, it's just another monster of the week, and that's just how you see them, well, would that really make them as good? Would that really give them purpose? And I'm saying it's I would much rather have that than have a load of context to the monsters, a load of background which you need to understand their situation. Now, I don't think there's been a example of that recently, because fair dues to all the monsters that they've made return, they've either explained it really well, they've explained the context really well, or they've given them something so new that it doesn't really matter if you've seen the old stuff or not, because it's just a whole not different monster, but a whole new set of abilities which you can really appreciate. Like the Zygons, for instance, take them, I mean, sure, they still keep their natural shapeshifter alien form who wants to take over Earth because their home planet was destroyed. That's the basis of their creature, but they gave them something new. I mean, they could telepathically detect people and shapeshift into them, and which is a fantastic ability, and I love what they've done with that. That's one of the things I do love about the Zygon 2 parser. And they've also given the sort of basic feature of electricity hands or something, which is just it's a tired, lazy ability to give them, but sure, it's an ability nonetheless, and it gives them something new, and that's brilliant. If they gave them that, that'd be fantastic. And I don't know, if we do bring back monsters from the classic series, and you have to watch the classic series episode fully to fully appreciate it, then maybe that won't work as much. Like if we decided to bring back Sutekh, for instance, and you had to have the context of everything that he'd done in Pyramids of Mars with the Fourth Doctor to fully appreciate his appearance now, and if he doesn't just make sense on his own in that story, and that can be his little self-contained story where everything's just revolved around the narrative in that, then that could be a bit tricky, because Doctor Who does have an extensive history. I mean, sure, you've got the televised canon, but then you've also got Big Finish, and you've got the novels you got bloody every piece of media that you can imagine, and it's just too much. Nobody can be expected to just watch everything to understand what's happening now. And I know the TV series will mainly rely on the TV series and wouldn't really rely on the Big Finish stuff or the novel stuff. It will, if anything, rely on the classic series. But I mean, even that, it's 55 years of stuff. I think the way that the classic villains can be handled, and they have been handled in the past, is that they are given something new, and the context of their stuff is just explained in a sentence or two, and even though the changes are dramatic, they still make sense, and it's still all self-contained stories. And examples of stories that have done this in terms of classic villain returns are the Sontarans in Series 4 and the Silurians in Series 5. Now, I know a lot of people don't really like these episodes. I think a lot of people think they're fine. They're fine episodes, but I really like them, and I think a lot of people's complaints about them are how dramatic the redesigns are. I mean, the Sontarans, they have these bright blue armours, and they're very short now, and maybe that makes them not as intimidating. And the Silurians, of course, their design has more or less completely changed. They're more human, and they're not really lizard people now. But I think I still really like these stories, because they're still really good stories. They're still really self-contained stories that you don't really need to see all of their appearances in the classic series to understand. And all their context is just explained, like Sontarans they're a clone-bred race who are dedicated to war, and the Silurians is they easily explain that. There's a great scene where it just explains everything, and there is reference to the Third Doctor stuff where he said he's had conflicts with the Silurians before, and they've tried to resurface and take over humans, but they all died. You don't really need to see that. That doesn't make explicit reference to that episode. It's just another one of those callbacks where the Doctor talks about an adventure which could have happened off screen. It's just another one of that. And, it's just the way that it should be handled. And I don't think there has been an extreme handling of a classic villain return where the context is really heavy. But, and there shouldn't be. But I think just to be safe, just to keep the audience on, just to give Jodie Whittaker a fresh start, I'd say just leave it. Maybe have them back if you want it to be confirmed that yes, she definitely is the Doctor. These villains know who she is. They don't care about gender or anything, because they just see the Doctor. I mean, fine, do that, but really the fact that you're seeing Peter Capaldi literally transform into her should be reason enough that she is the Doctor, and that's just, But yeah, what are your thoughts? What classic villains would you like to see? Leave your answers in the comments below so I can, as always, ignore them. I'll see you next time for whatever I'm going to be rambling on about. And bye.